Hey guys, I hope you're doing just fine. It's Elliot here and I would like to welcome you to the new YouTube channel Eureka. Being passionate about climate, biodiversity, sustainability, innovation and well-being, I decided to create this channel in order to share some of aspects of my own interest and in hoping that it can help people to understand better how climate change works and actually how we can fight against it. In this first video, and actually in the next one, we will be talking about a topic that is really important to me as it has a strong connection between climate change and well-being. And it's eco-anxiety, which is the chronic fear of environmental doom. I hope through this video you will learn some cool stuff and especially why climate action depends a lot on well-being and especially how we take care of our mental health. So for now, whenever you're ready, let's start the video. Once upon a time, our species, humans, have learned how to use our environment in order to survive and to expand all over the globe. It also seems that with a brain that is never satisfied and thanks to technology still more and more sophisticated, we have been using more and more of our natural resources. In living in a society still seeking for constant growth while living in a world that is finite, it seems that we are already facing its limits and its consequences, climate change. In the year 2019, Europe and Australia have been facing important heat waves and fire forests. Some part of Asia had to deal with deadly floods. In the meantime, Africa was experiencing severe droughts and even catastrophic pest insect invasions, destroying cultures. And early 2020, things didn't go any better. The whole world has been facing a global epidemic caused by the virus COVID-19. This has obliged most of the concerned nations to slow down their activities in order to take control over the virus. This situation has also affected people at the individual level, pushing them to change their habits. Despite not everyone understanding the link between climate change and corona crisis, we globally understood that our current system was fragile and how we could be defenseless in front of climate or ecological disasters. The fear of incoming danger, such as the rise of extreme weather in terms of intensity, frequency, location, as well as the feeling of a current lack of effective and immediate solutions, can create a cocktail of negative emotions and affect our mental health. This concept is called eco-anxiety. From what I found, it seems that the term eco-anxiety or climate anxiety was used for the first time only in 2017 by the American Psychological Association, and they defined eco-anxiety such as a chronic fear of environmental doom. However, it's important to keep in mind that the term eco-anxiety is not a defined condition, but more a group of association. This is for this reason that despite eco-anxiety or climate anxiety are globally used, some scientists decided to suggest some alternative terminology in order to be more accurate depending on the situation. You can find different terms such as climate distress or eco-fear, as we can find a range of painful feelings without having necessary anxiety, such as anger. The eco-psychologist Woodbury presents anxiety as a symptom caused by eco-trauma. In situation of a lack of substantive progress, the term eco-despair seems to be the most accurate. And we can be affected by eco-anxiety from different ways. First, as a direct exposition to climate change, which means with events happening right now and quite severe. Sadly, it is usually the minorities and group of people the most vulnerable. Around 1,000 people all over the world are displaced from their home every year as a result of extreme weather, and this number will increase in the future. This situation is often linked, sadly, to a higher risk of mental illness. And we can also find eco-anxiety related to ecological loss. It is, for example, the case in Kulusuk in Greenland, where the ice has melted and modified the environment, and this has caused a rise of depression, alcoholism, and even suicide. We find the same phenomenon in, for example, Nunatsiavut region of Labrador in Canada, where the modification of the environment is related to a rise of chronic stress and depression within the population. Indigenous population, due to their strong relationship with their environment, are one of the most affected by this ecological loss. And they may experience a huge dilemma in order to change this lifestyle that has been the same for 1,000 years, just in order to survive. The women from the developing world are also one of the most affected to climate change and to mental illness related. Among the 1.3 billion people in the developing world living below the threshold of poverty, 70% are women. It seems that the women from those areas suffer more negative impacts from climate change because of social and cultural norms regarding gender roles. Now that we have talked about direct expositions that could be linked to eco-anxiety, let's focus more on indirect expositions. In this second case, the climate threat is more felt in the near future than actually taking place right now. We find it usually in Western or wealthy countries where, despite we are also experiencing some climate disasters, they are usually less significant than in the rest of the world. Social media seems to play an important role in those indirect expositions. Now that we live in an interconnected world where internet is everywhere through our cell phones, it can be difficult to regulate the flow of information. Moreover, as a picture can tell more than words, environmental NGOs have developed campaigns to inform and to make people react to climate change, its consequences, and our own implications. While it can be necessary to make a large group of people react in a short amount of time, it can also end up in an overdose of negative emotions that in long term can affect our mental health and even prevent us to react and to act against climate change. The youth is also the group of people the most affected to eco-anxiety. The vision of a society organized and led by adults and that are supposed to protect the children is now in conflict with the reality where the growing-ups are actually destroying the planet with climate change and are not able to solve it. Even worse, it also seems that some adults with very important positions in governments or companies have adopted the idea that the future generations will be the ones that have to fix climate change. As example, Greta Thunberg, the 17-year-old climate activist, has been openly talking about her climate anxiety and her involvement into climate action as a way to fight her depression. People working on climate change issues such as scientists, NGO workers, or activists are also one of the most affected to eco-anxiety and even burnouts. This can be explained by having to deal with so many negative news the whole day. Living in a society that still doesn't get the climate emergency, lacking resources or working without the support of an organization, and finally, while working against resistance from a powerful fossil fuel industry, while we are even facing harassment or threats in some countries. So now, why it's so important to talk about eco-anxiety? Feeling the threat of climate change can bring to us a series of difficult emotions: fear, anger, shame, grief, loss, helplessness. We need to cope with those feelings in order to take care of our mental and physical health. However, not all the coping strategies are good. While strategy adaptive, focusing on solving attitude or seeking social support can help us to fight our eco-anxiety, as it can also be a driver for climate action, so many are falling into the strategy maladaptive, which are focusing on avoidance and denial, and even unrealistic optimism and wishful thinking, that in addition to pushing the problem away, are also preventing them to fight climate change. As the Australian Psychological Society said, because climate change is caused by human behaviors, it requires a change in those behaviors if we want to bring out solutions. Climate change is then as much a psychological and social problem as it is ecological and environmental disasters. They also said the more we understand the psychology of how people are responding to climate change, the better we can help ourselves and others to overcome barriers of inaction and get involved in effectively addressing climate change. And now this is the end of this video. In the next one, I will also be talking about eco-anxiety, but I will focus more about how to prevent it and how to actually even reverse it into climate action. So I hope you have liked this video, you learned something, you found it useful in this way. Feel free to give a like, to share it, and also to subscribe to the channel if you like the content and you don't want to miss the next videos. I will be also active on Instagram, where I will be using it to maybe share some content and also to use it as a platform to exchange with you. So for now, I wish you a good day, a good week, and see you to the next video.